Good morning, good afternoon, good night, my dears. Welcome to the Worldwide Podcast, Czech Republic edition. Let's drink a beer during this podcast because we are talking about this beer country, which is Czech Republic. But before we introducing now our guest, I just want to ask, how's Guilherme? Where have you been, bro? Traveling so far?
Bro, I've been hunting trolls. My main mission about going to Skyrim, to Norway, in the middle of nowhere was to find a troll. I didn't, which was unfortunately, but I got to see really nice views. I got to ski for the second time, and I got to ski without falling, which was my objective. And I can tell you, to anyone who hasn't skied, fuck the sticks. Don't use the sticks. Those are just like, those will like knock your brain out. Those will just make you fall.
And how do you break, bro?
With the feet. So that's the thing. People think the sticks is using for brakes. Sticks are only used like to give you like a little push
Direction.
and to help you like no direction, just to give you a push when you're standing up or to help you like get up if you fall. They don't do anything else, by the way.
Oh, fuck, that's why they just put on, under their arms and go like this.
Exactly, like the whole thing.
Right.
I'm like,
oh, fuck.
Either I can do that or I can just like leave the sticks. And because of that, I got to actually use the big man's little slides instead of using the kids one without falling. So that I am proud, people. Portuguese person skiing. Never seen before in a place that is not touristic, where everybody was laughing at me. So yeah, it was a nice trip actually, Norway, and I got to see people that I hadn't seen for 3 years. Some Norwegian friends of mine, and yeah, didn't see the Northern Lights though. So I guess I gotta get back to Norway, but this time to Tromsø, to the very north, or Svalbard to see polar bears. Why not go for the polar bears? But yeah, this week will be very, very interesting. We have Czech Republic, which I've never visited actually. I did apply. I remember the first time that I was going abroad, I chose Bologna, Italy, and I chose Prague. I didn't get into Prague, and Italy was my second option, so I got into Italy. But I've heard very good things about Czech Republic, and I hope we talk about it. So yeah, introducing our guest, we have Mirek. So how you doing, Mirek?
Hi guys, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm doing just fine. I'm super excited about this podcast episode. So let's get to it.
For sure. Let's see how different Czech Republic is from Slovakia, which we'll also talk a little bit about. But yeah, let's, as Ron was saying, let's start by the beer paradise.
Yeah.
Why is it the beer paradise?
Amazing.
Oh, that's a very good question, actually. I'm not myself, I'm not really a beer person, to be honest. But I totally understand the obsession of Czechs with beer. We are super proud of our beer, and we have many different kinds. Like each city has, like not each city, but there are a lot of cities who have their own local beers, and we are all proud of that. And sometimes we have like a special editions of different beers for different parts of the year when there's something festive to celebrate. So yeah, it's the obsession is real.
For sure, like it's so different than in Portugal. We have two brands of beer, and that's why I hated beer until I was 20 years old, because I only enjoyed beer when I went to the Balkan region, to Croatia, because they also have a massive variety of beer. And yeah, Portugal is like two brands. I told that even to my Norwegian friends that I just visited, like we only have two brands, and I'm like, that's impossible. So you go to a bar and what do you ask? And I'm like, beer, because they also don't have the two brands. They either have one or the other. So I just say beer.
Yeah, sometimes might happen this because it's a wine country, right? I mean, you don't produce lots of beer there in Portugal.
Yeah.
Maybe because of that. Not
that's
sure.
Also region,
but maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, I mean, in Czech Republic, they do produce lots of beers and they do drink lots of beers, and people doesn't know about it. They all think about Germany and all about Germany, Oktoberfest and kind of stuff. But the country that drinks more beer, like I mean, amounts of beer in per capita and kind of stuff, it's Czech Republic. They actually drink lots of beers. And I've been to Prague, and I can say, it's crazy, bro. Everywhere you go, there is a place or a small shop selling beers, and people drink it right there. And also Slovovice. How do I pronounce it?
Slovovice.
Yeah. It's a kind of Czech rakia, right?
Yes, yeah, it's if you heard about Palinka, it's basically similar to that, and you can make it out of many different fruits. So you can have
Yeah,
Merunkovice, which is made out of apricots.
paprika.
Slivovice is made out of plums. Then in Slovakia they have Borovička and all those liquors.
Really tasty. Fuck, I was getting fucking drunk during. I guess Prague was the city that I was less sober in my life. I mean, I spent 48 hours in Prague and I was sober for 8 hours, let's say. I slept 4 hours each day. That was the time I was sober because I was sleeping. That was it. I
It's
mean,
hard to resist.
what an amazing country.
Yeah, I agree. It's really hard to resist the alcohol when it's just there.
Definitely. And not too expensive actually. Not too expensive. Very easy to find and very easy to buy in the shops and not too pricey.
That was what I was gonna say. Maybe Czech Republic drinks the most beer because one, it's not as expensive as other countries, and two, maybe Czechs have like a better immune system than the Germans because German people they get drunk easily. They may seem
Yeah.
big, but they get drunk easily. It's so funny to see they drink like two big beers and they're like already stuttering their words. And I'm sure Czechs maybe they're the opposite. Maybe they're on their like eighth beer and they're still able to say the alphabet from front to back and back to front. Who knows? Doing some equations. So yeah, maybe that's a good reason why.
Yeah, that's true. I remember my father, like he is pretty resistant to words drinking beer and not getting drunk. So yeah, maybe that's something in our genes that we can withstand the amount of alcohol.
No, I love it. And one thing that also really fascinates me about Czech Republic is how medieval the country is.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons is because it wasn't bombed during World War II, which is why a lot of countries actually lost their castles and everything in the fortresses. But Czech Republic has so many great castles, and I'm sure João also visiting
Yeah.
can say that. But me, just from the pictures, it looks crazy. Even like in the city, there's this huge castle, and around is just like normal homes, and it's so funny to me. Um, but yeah, what do you think about the architecture and why would it be so medieval in comparison to other countries?
I think that it's thanks to the rich history that Czech Republic has. There is a huge influence of the Slavic and Germanic culture, and all of them, both of them combined, like it just produced so many beautiful historical monuments all over the place in the Czech Republic. Also, it's surrounded basically by mountains. There's only one part of Czech Republic where there are no mountains, which is the area where I come from.
Mm.
But other than that, we are kind of protected by those mountains. So it was maybe harder to conquer those areas in the past, and we were able to defeat those monuments and keep them alive for many years and decades. Yeah.
That is interesting. I didn't know it was like surrounded by mountains. Maybe that's why it's so different from Central Europe, I would say.
Mhm.
Maybe that's a big reason because it was like away from the rest in barricaded, and back in the day people couldn't just like hop on the mountain and go back down so easily like today. So maybe that is why, because we were just talking about before we started the podcast how Czech Republic and Slovakia are so different from Central Europe and from the Balkan region. Like I remember having some friends from Slovakia, and I also met some people from Czech Republic, and just the way they were was so different from Croatians and from Bosnians, Slovenians. Even though it's really close by, and obviously the language is nothing like it. So yeah, it was cool to see the difference in culture, even though the countries were so close by. What would you say, Mirek, like a big difference for Czech Republic would be in comparison to let's say Austria or Germany or Poland? Why do you think it's so different culturally to those countries?
Culturally, I have never actually thought about that before. For me, it seems pretty similar to, for example, Austrian culture. The only difference is the language and maybe the mindset of the people there. But then when it comes to the his not the history, but the cuisine, like it's
Mhm.
very similar. I don't really see this difference. Um, yeah.
I didn't know about the food actually. Is it so? It's similar to Austrian, and to Poland, Germany, because I mean Czech Republic is surrounded by so many countries. I was just saying
Mm.
now, it's so many countries like Germany, Austria, Slovakia, Poland.
Yes. Yes.
I I thought it was more actually. So it's only these.
Yeah,
These. I thought it had also Slovenia, but
talk
no.
about food, culture. I actually felt the same. I mean, I've lived 2 years in Poland, and I kind of felt the same eating in Poland, and then in Czech Republic when I went to Prague. There were lots of similar stuff. Potato based country, let's say, lots of potato right there, and the same was happening in Poland. So I kind of feel the same. But culturally, I thought you guys different. I mean, more open than the Poles actually. In Polish people, they can be very open. I mean, in the capitals, but when you go, countryside, they actually are pretty close. And then I couldn't see this in Czech Republic because I went there by Flixbus, and we were passing by, countryside. I've passed to Bruno, which is a kind of, big city actually, but we were stopping by some cities that actually very, very small countryside where people couldn't barely speak in English and give, advice for us. But the vibes were different than going to the countryside in Poland. I mean, people were more open for us, or kind of trying to explain where we should go, showing the directions and kind of stuff. So I just had this feeling that the people there in Czech Republic were more open than in Poland, I guess.
Okay, that's nice to hear actually, because I had that idea that in Prague people are very open-minded. People speak English on a daily basis, and it's more frequent for them to get in touch with internationals. But then I thought that maybe in villages and small towns they would be a bit more hesitant to speaking English and yeah, but that's just the perks of capital cities, that they tend to be a bit more open. But it's nice to hear it from an international that they had a nice experience in smaller parts of Czech Republic as well.
No, definitely. I mean, even though it was during a kind of folk festival in the city, I
Mm.
forgot the name of the city, but I can Google it later. And it was pretty cool. I mean, they were very gentle for us because we were during the folk festival right there, and they were kind of, oh, you're Brazilian, they're here in the folk. Try this soup, try this drink, and they were actually very welcome for us right there.
Okay, that's really nice to hear that. Actually. My
It is. I mean, it is the best way to visit one of those countries. Let's say, like really medieval, to go to folk festival because you get to
Yeah.
see like their heritages, their old habits. It was the same when we had our Slovakian episode. We talked a little bit about or our guests talked that their one of their favorite things was just their folk culture because it's very prominent in the country, and they're really proud of the dances and the music and everything else. So I can imagine Czech Republic kind of is similar in that word to Slovakia in the way you guys do the folk dances and the folk music and the folk festivals around the country, especially
yeah.
because of how many castles you guys have. You could probably even do inside the castles, can imagine. So that's really nice to hear.
Yeah.
And do you have any experience in like in folk? Do you dance folk when you were a
Uh,
kid?
I don't have experience myself, but I have a lot of friends who were taking a part in such festivities. But it's pretty common, I would say, especially in villages. There are many folk festivals across the Czech Republic, and yeah, throughout they celebrate it throughout the year, and visitors can see traditional Czech music, and they can
Wow,
see
this
the
is the best
dances
part.
and costumes, and it's just beautiful. It really brings you back in time.
Mm. That's why I also think it's a little bit different than Germany and Austria. I mean, they do have, for example, Oktoberfest. It's also like a folk festival, but it's at the same time it isn't. And I feel like you see more of the culture, especially like this medieval and this old folk culture when you go to Czech Republic and to Slovakia than if you were to go to Austria and to Germany. I could be wrong, but that's what I kind of see, and that's also why I think people are a little bit different because my Austrian friends, they were the same as my German friends. I mean, they could speak to each other easily. Even if one is speaking Austrian and the other speaking German, it's almost the same language. But still, I feel like their personality could be more similar in that word. So that's why I was saying maybe you guys could be a little bit different than, let's say, this central part of Europe. For sure.
Okay. I mean, if you compare it to the other Central Europe countries, then you can see some differences. But when I take a look at Poland, like Poland is a very Christian country. That's
Yeah, it
not
is.
like in Czech Republic at all. Like we are mostly atheists. I think that 2/3 of our nation are atheists. So we don't really have this connection to religious Christianity. I don't know when that happened, that we kind of gave up on that, but yeah, it's just
That is interesting,
not
actually.
Yeah,
really
it's
Wow,
very interesting. That's
I
why
never
the
knew.
culture is actually different than if you compare to Poland. Maybe
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of this, that people are actually welcoming us more in the countryside
Yes,
of Czech Republic than comparing to Poland.
yes. Yeah, maybe there's
Oh,
some pattern in that. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, religion does play a huge part in how
It
people
does, it does.
behave and lifestyle and everything. So maybe 100%. But I didn't know. Yeah, there were a lot of or atheism was like a big thing in Czech Republic because it does seem a very Christian city, like Catholic, from
Mm-hmm,
an
mm-hmm.
from an outside point of view. I would say
Yeah,
like
right.
probably like the UK seems less religious, but because I guess from the buildings,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
But
because we have so many churches in the cities and so many castles and those historical monuments. Like you would say that, yeah, that's a place where they go to church every Sunday.
mm,
No.
but actually that could be. I do have I don't know if I could call it an hypothesis because it cannot be answered just like that. But I do have like a little thought that Italy is a very religious. I mean, it's a religious country
Yeah, it
because you
is.
can see all of the churches. People go to church. I mean, obviously the Vatican and everything, but it doesn't feel religious in the sense that you don't see people going to churches a lot. I mean, you hear the church bells, but you don't sense the religion in the country. Whereas in South Africa, for example, you barely see churches, but religion is so much present in that country. It's crazy. And my thought is that it's because it goes with preaching. I feel like there's so many preachers in South Africa. Then let's
Have you
say
seen lots
than
of
Italy.
preachers there, bro? Have you seen lots of preachers like just going on daily basis to stores and coffee shops? That
Yo,
because it
in
was kind of, picture this in my mind while you
no,
talking
but
about this.
here's the thing: preachers, you think like a preacher has like a costume and everything. Preachers could be
Yeah,
anyone. It's just like someone trying to project their religion
for sure.
onto you. Like I'll be on the Ubers and the Uber drivers would be talking about God and God's mission and everything, and I'm like, damn, bro, I just wanna get to my destination. I don't want to get
Yeah, yeah.
converted.
I got you. I
But
got you.
but for example, Christianity in South Africa is very based. It's like the United States. It's very based on like a guy, not even a priest, just a guy, talking to a bunch of people, and like reading the scripture and the Bible and giving his interpretations and everything. That's why I feel like it can seem more present, even though there's not as many churches in architecture or religious architecture in the country. And maybe that's also with Czech Republic. It could be something like that.
Yes, yeah, I would say
You're right.
so. Yeah, true.
But it is an interesting thought, actually. Just just because you barely see any churches, but everyone talks so much about religion. It's crazy. Like
Yeah.
you talk to someone and he's gonna say something about like any religion he's on. But yeah, it was interesting to see that. Now, my biggest question is, and this is going to be an interesting one. why is Czech Republic so touristic and Slovakia isn't?
I think that it's because we are always in the spotlight. Out of those two countries, we are the main ones. In the past, it was also Czechoslovakia. Like we are always the first. When we were one country, everything was kind of centralized in Czech Republic. So we took everything from Slovakia, and we we left nothing there. Like I think that when I discuss this topic with my Slovak friends, they always get mad because we took the best from them. And then the countries divided. So they are always kind of in our shadow, unfortunately. And yeah, we are slightly bigger. We have bigger population. Maybe we have bigger representation in the world in certain areas that get bigger spotlight than the others. So yeah, I think that unfortunately that's the way it is. But I think that Slovakia is hugely underrated. Like their nature is so beautiful. The high Tatras, I think that's how it's called
Tatra
in
Mountains,
English.
yeah, the border with
Yeah,
Poland, right? I've been there.
yeah,
Wow, amazing landscape is
it's amazing.
stunning, bro.
Yeah, I wish more people knew about that. And then that's also something that I talk to my Slovak friends about, that when Czechs are visiting Slovakia and they go to Tatra Mountains, they go there so unprepared that they have to send emergency to save them, because otherwise they would just die there. And then Slovaks are like,
Really? What? That
yeah,
is interesting.
It's tough.
I
It's
did see.
tough. Not that easy. I mean, I've never do the entire path of the Tatra Mountains, but still, I mean, it's very hard to climb up the cliff right there. It's very high.
yes, yeah. They also
I
have
did see some videos
those
of
mountains
like
and
people doing the hikes on those mountains, and they're so steep, and even sometimes they're with the harness, so they have to go like around the mountain, but like putting their feet on the mountain. How's that called? I forgot. I think there's a name to that. But basically,
With ropes,
you have a
right?
rope. Yeah, with ropes, and
Yeah.
then you have an harness, and then you have to go sideways on the mountain. And I've seen videos of my Slovakian friends doing. I don't know if he was in those mountains, but I know he was in Slovakia, and they were doing it. I'm like, man, that's so steep and so high. Nah, I wouldn't want to know what if the rope wouldn't work anymore or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm
it is very
selling, right?
beautiful, I would say.
yeah, steep and high, but worth visiting for sure.
100%. And I also think it's a little bit because of the media. Because let's put it like this. When you see Prague in a movie, it's always like a highlight. It's crazy beautiful, the Festival of Lights, everything. I mean, Spider-Man, Far From Home even had that big scene in Prague. And so many other movies that that I could think of that have Prague as like a big or a must destination in Europe. Whereas Slovakia, we did talk about this on our Slovakian podcast, it's only portrayed so badly. I mean, you have Hostel, you have Euro Trip, you have all these movies projecting such negativity, saying that it's dangerous, it's there's human trafficking happening, all these things. So I think media also works.
American media, what Slovakians must hate Americans because of it.
They do 100%. But then Czech Republic is always like, boom, come to us. We have our castles, we have our beer, we have our beautiful festivals. Come to us.
Yeah,
that's true.
Just get crazy right here in Prague, drinking until early in the morning and kind of stuff. That's how they sell.
Yeah, I totally forgot about Hostel movie to be shot in Slovakia.
It must have been crazy for you to see. Why are they saying this about Slovakia? I've been there. It's so nice. And then it's like, nope, human trafficking when you go to a hostel and you got killed and tortured and sent to a ship to Middle East, whatever it is. So
how cheap is it because of Euro Trip movie? that you can actually buy a house with such a pence in your pocket and a few coins, you can buy a house, and it's crazy.
Man. And actually, let's now switch a little bit to why did you actually go to Denmark? So why did you make the move? Okay, Czech Republic no more. not even going to go to Germany, Austria, or any of those countries. I'm going to go to Denmark, to a Scandinavian country. Why did you make that move?
Yes, just to give listeners of this podcast some context, I moved to Denmark 4.5 years ago to proceed my studies at
Oh, cool.
university, and I did it because I tried to study at a university in Czech Republic, and I didn't really like it. I wanted to give it a chance, just to experience how it is, how it works. Um, but after the first semester of my studies in Czech Republic, I decided to drop out from the program I was enrolled in and try my luck in Denmark. I was in love with Scandinavian culture for a long time before that. And this idea of hygge and the coziness with the Scandinavian design, the beautiful nature, and yeah, that's why I chose Denmark. Yeah, and since then I've been here in Aarhus, the second largest city in Denmark, and um, I think that yeah, that's it.
Pretty cool.
No, for sure, for sure. And Denmark is interesting because talking just a little bit about Norway is that Norway is very evenly distributed, meaning that you have a lot of people in Oslo, you have a lot of people in Bergen, you have a lot of people in Trondheim, and in other cities. But Denmark, like majority of people are just in Copenhagen. Then the population drops drastically to other cities. Why do you think that is actually? Like, is infrastructure that good in Copenhagen that people are like, I either go there or don't go live in Denmark?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very good question. I think that it's because everything is centralized there. I mean, so it's a great place. They have a lot of different facilities. They have great museums, great universities. It's just whatever you need in life, you can find it there, except nature.
Except nature. Yeah.
I mean, they have some beautiful parks, of course, but it's not really for hiking. It's a very flat city. You can also see it from the pictures of those beautiful bike lines, I must say.
Mhm.
It's also a bit suicidal to try to walk in there sometimes because the bikers will just roll over you, like they have no mercy here. Yeah, but then if you try to go to some smaller cities in across Denmark, for example, Aarhus, even though it's the second biggest city, it has around, I think, 300,000 citizens. It's a really nice, cozy place to live. It has a beautiful art museum called Aros, which is very interactive. They have a lot of exhibitions. It has great cafes. It's a very student city. Then in other cities, for example, Aalborg, which is in north of Jutland, that's also a very student city. And Odense, yeah, just smaller cities. They have their charm, but then they might be lacking of some things that you would be able to find in Copenhagen.
Mm. I do think turning some cities into student cities helps a lot to disperse people in the country. I know that did a lot of good in Portugal, because most people are in Lisbon or Porto. But since we have now so many student cities, so many people going to the interior, so to Évora, to Beja, to Castelo Branco, which is our like areas in the interior, and it's really nice because those areas are super super cool. But then there has to be an incentive to sending people to these places, because if there's just nature, I mean it is cool, but to live there, maybe not so much. Depending, especially when you're young, because you mostly want entertainment and good accessibility and infrastructure. So there needs to be at least some incentive besides the college to make people go there. And yeah, I think Denmark is doing that, as you said. But then maybe more entertainment could be an answer, or let's say festivals, some way to make people, okay, I want to live here actually 1 year, instead of just being like just a couple months.
Yes.
Amazing. And Mirek, how do you feel like, I mean, if your coworkers or kind of stuff, how is this, traveling wise talking? People actually moves a lot from the countryside of Denmark to Copenhagen. How is it in Aarhus? Lots of people goes to Aarhus as well from countryside in Denmark. And how is it?
You mean the locals or
Yeah, I
international?
mean not the locals. Yeah, even the locals, but people, Danish people from countryside going to Aarhus. Is it a thing?
If that's a thing, I can't really tell. I don't really get in touch with Danes that much, to be honest.
Okay.
Just in like grocery stores. I'm not really comfortable with my Danish, but everyone here speaks English, so that's totally fine. But to
Yeah.
get really close to people, you need to speak the language a
Yeah,
bit more.
sure.
Otherwise, like here, they are super helpful, super kind if you need some help. But that's kind of it. They will help you with anything that you need, but yeah, that's the most they will do. But really, for you to get close to them, that requires a bit more effort to learn the
Yeah,
language,
sure.
to understand.
Yeah, I felt the same in Poland. I mean, if I actually a very open guy. I really like to talk with random people on the street and kind of stuff. And yeah, to reach this barrier to get close to the people and ask about the daily basis and kind of stuff, you need to speak the language because it's hard for you to get in the mind of people if you don't speak, your own language. I do remember, a day I went to the shop and every single day I was talking in Polish with the lady, like the cashier lady, and she was, even one day after day, she was talking more with me, and then become a day that she started to speak lots of things in Polish to me, and I just became like, "Sorry, lady, I don't speak, this fluent in Polish. Could
Mhm.
you repeat?" and kind of stuff, and she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry because you're very gentle. I really wanted to know more about your story and kind of stuff." And then I kind of felt this and I got this to my, as goal of living in Poland that I needed to speak as good as I could speak with this lady. And then in the last days of in Poland, right there, I could go there and talk about my history and how is my country working and kind of stuff. And she was very happy. And it was one of, the best experiences I had with locals there in Poland. It was pretty cool. She was opening herself and telling how great is Poland doing because she was very Catholic and very conservative and kind of stuff. And yeah, I was just giving the room for her to speak, and it was pretty great. I mean, it's nice when you reach this barrier, when you break this barrier of language with locals. It's pretty cool.
For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So
I
you
also
try
think
to, sorry.
no, go, Mirek.
So you try to learn some Polish when you were there.
I did. That was a topic that I want to come up because Polish people says that Czech sounds very cute for them. When people speak Czech to them, it's just cute. Oh, you're just cute. You speak more to me and kind of stuff. People say this. What do you think about Polish language?
Uh, I would say that it's like whispering or whistling. Whistling. Yeah, that's the right word. Because they use a lot of
Yeah.
sounds, and that makes everything so hard to understand. Like as a Czech, I can understand maybe like 10% of Polish.
Really?
But yeah. Like
Because
you get some.
they can actually understand you guys good,
All
Polish
right.
people. They
Okay, I
say.
think it really depends on how fast they speak. If it's
Yeah.
like normal conversation in Polish, I would probably not understand much. If they slow down a bit, then it's a bit more understandable. But yeah, I would say that Slovak is cuter than
Hmm.
yeah, because they have a lot of soft letters that they use. I cannot pronounce those letters.
Okay.
But it just, I think that the way how their language is, how it sounds, it's really cute. And
Pretty
then
good.
for Poles, I think that there are some words that are very cute for them.
Actually, I wanted to touch on like you were talking how Danish people can be a little bit harder to connect with. And I think it's a bit of a stereotype that Scandinavia, at least some people, they say Scandinavian people are super cold. They don't do anything. They stay just in their shell. And actually, I've only had great experience with Scandinavian people, both from Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. I think obviously it's not like being friends with someone from Italy, because someone from Italy has so much energy. They just want to go crazy. Scandinavian people, they need to be comfortable, but once they're comfortable, they're just crazy as well. They're like little gremlins. Um, and um, and I do think it's a big stereotype that people have, that Scandinavian people are so cold, because I guess they live in a cold place because of the weather. But especially now that I've been in Norway, they are so helpful and ready to help you in anything that you want. I was in this skiing place. It's anything but touristic. There's not even one, probably non-Norwegian person there besides me. And I only had skied once, so I was like really bad, because I only surf. I barely have snow. I mean, Portugal barely has snow on its own. But so many of these Norwegian people, they were trying to help me to get good with the skis and understanding how to do the zigzags and to switch and everything. And there was this one time, this is actually when I did the sticks as well. I did the whole ramp with zigzags and little jumps, and I was able to not fall. And the people on the T lift, so when you actually end up at the end and you have to take the lift up, they were cheering me on because they knew I was like the bad person, the bad skier there, and I actually ended up working my way to get good skiing.
What a victory, bro.
And that was so cool. I felt so nice. Like, they were so nice. Like, they were cheery. I was like, yeah, let's go. When I was getting my way down and being fast and being able to do to stop with the skis and not with my ass. That's what usually happens when you're learning to ski. You have to just fall back, or else you can't stop. So yeah, I did have a really nice experience, and I did feel that they're also very inviting. Not just with these Norwegian friends that I have, but a lot of Swedish friends of mine. They also are like, yeah, we have cabins whenever you want to go to Sweden. Like, come, you can come to my parents' home and everything. And that's also like one big topic. Like, the Scandinavian people are not inviting. They're not gonna offer you anything. But I think otherwise, and for experience, yeah, especially for experience, I think that is very wrong. And you can actually say your experience being in Denmark and coming from this area where people would be, I guess, inviting as well. What was your experience when coming for the first time to Denmark?
Oh, I think that my first experience was not very, very good. I think that
Dismissing everything I just said. No,
when
for
I
sure.
Just pull a trigger on him.
Stop it.
Because when I flew to Denmark, I think that we had a really bad turbulences. So there was like, oh my God, am I gonna die today here? Oh, when I'm starting the new chapter of my life? Please no. People even started clapping when we landed, so that was kind of
Whoa.
scary. And then I think that I just had some issues with the housing company where we got our accommodation. There was some miscommunication going on, so it was a bit unpleasant. But then when I got in touch with Danes face to face, it was really nice, and like everyone is really helpful, as you said. We're very welcoming. They are also super curious where we come from and why we chose Denmark as our place to live. And yeah, they just have this like very friendly trait in themselves.
Especially their language. I just feel like Scandinavian language just sounds so friendly. I mean, I can speak for Norwegian. It just sounds so nice. Like, it's impossible. I don't know if it's possible for them to be hangry with that language. It sounds just too nice for that.
Have you heard Danish?
It sounds even cuter, actually. I do remember, because I had a couple Danish friends back in Italy, and my Norwegian friends did say that the language sounded like a little bit softer, cuter. the Norwegians. So it's even could be even better. So it's impossible to be angry if you're in Denmark or if you're Danish. Here said.
Okay.
What do you think of this claim?
I don't want to break it to you, so I'm just gonna.
Just leave it to him like this, you know. I don't want to know the real stuff, you know. Just
God.
stay with Santa Claus. Just stay with Santa Claus.
We have this saying
My
in the
bad.
Republic that you drink like a Dane, but it doesn't really. I don't know if it mean what it means for us that you drink a lot, but here, like people when they drink, they are so loud, it's crazy. Like usually Danes are pretty introverted, I would say, like in general. I don't like to generalize, but on average. But then when they take a sip of an alcohol, like they just like turn the
Or two.
volume on. It's
Yeah.
Mirek,
But you're not used
Mirek,
to, right?
Mirek, they're gremlins.
yeah.
They taste the beer, the water, they become gremlins. It's crazy. Especially when they go abroad. Oh my God, I've never had to just to chill these people out a little bit, like say, hey, let's chill a little bit because I'm good with that, but like the Germans, they're not good with that and all that. But it's so funny to see because they become so gremlins, like they become crazy.
Yeah. I remember when I was at high school or primary school, we had those articles and news that I think it was around spring time, like Easter period. And it was about Danish students flying to Czech Republic to go to Prague and just get wasted. And that was in the news every single year because they just got so wasted. They were like breaking things in the streets and it was everywhere
No,
because the
Alright.
alcohol
Jesus.
here is so cheap for them.
Yeah, sure. That's the topic I wanted to reach. The taxes, you know, in alcohol right there in Denmark, they're crazy, you know, high
Yeah,
comparing to
that's
other countries, right? Because the
Yes.
government actually doesn't want people to drink right there.
Yes.
And it's crazy.
Yeah, I think that the regulations get a bit more
Software.
intense the
Oh,
northern
intense.
go. So it's probably a bit more regulated to buy alcohol in Sweden and Norway than it is in Denmark because here you can buy it in a grocery store. I think that in Sweden and Norway they have special stores for alcohol, and you
Yeah,
cannot
you
buy
can only
alcohol after some.
you can only buy beer in grocery stores. So
Yeah.
everything above 4.5, 4.3 or 4.5% has to be has to be bought in a liquor store, and that liquor
Yes.
store is closed on weekends, no, on Sunday, and it closes at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Then they close again on weekdays at like also very early, and there's crazy regulation like ID checks are insane. You could be like 26 and they ask for your ID. I've never been ID'd in my own country. No,
Yeah,
in Portugal,
me too.
I've never been ID'd to buy alcohol. I remember I was 15 once and I used to buy beers.
Yeah.
Never been ID checked. It's crazy. And yeah, in Norway, like I had to show like my passport. I mean, a photo that I had for my passport because I had no idea. And then my friend was like, "Yeah, they checked like IDs even you for like 26 already." Because the regulations are very high. But then I also know the story behind it, and it makes sense as well because it can be a very isolating country,
Yeah.
and people resort to alcohol when they become isolated. So the regulations come from that. But yeah, I can imagine Denmark is a little bit more freedom in that sense because it's also, let's say, sulfur and also maybe just how the country is.
Yeah, Copenhagen, let's say it's a
Yeah,
kind of, you know,
being
very
a bit
very
similar also to the
centralized city.
Netherlands in terms of
Yeah.
entertainment and all that. So for sure.
Yeah, but as we spoke, that's the other side of the coin that people tend to get isolated. They drink alcohol maybe too much. On the other hand, it's claimed to be one of the happiest country in the world, or one of the happiest countries in the world, that is for the whole Scandinavian region. That those countries are the happiest, but on the other hand, yeah, they have high percentages of alcohol consumption and unfortunately suicide rates.
Yeah, rate is
Yeah,
increased a lot.
especially Sweden, which is crazy. But yeah, so I mean, at least it's nice that those regulations work. But for the foreigners, they're like, I just want a beer. Give me goddamn beer. Why do I
Exactly,
need to get
traveling
ID
in
when I'm
there,
26 years old? Goddamn. Imagine like Americans going to Scandinavia just wanting to drink. Why can I buy a goddamn bottle of wine at 10 p.m.?
PBR.
Jesus. Now, actually, now going a little bit to your career, because I really find it interesting. UX design.
Yeah,
It is something
pretty
that
great.
is, you have to be creative and you have to be a really good developer. So you have to mix both. So you're not just a programmer, but you're also kind of making everything seem really nice and appealing. You could actually correct me on that because I'm not a big expert on that area. But for me, UX design is like, okay, I need to build this, but I also need to make it really pretty and really nice. But again, make it functional and interactive. Am I
Yes.
correct?
So. I would totally leave out the development part out of that, because as a UX designer, I work on making products such as websites, apps, consumer electronics, whatever, to make them useful and valuable for the end customers or for the end users. So it's seamless for them to interact with the product and they have a nice experience and they achieve whatever they want to achieve with that product. So I designed the front end, which is the way how it looks like, how it interacts, how it works for the users, where does it guide them, and this is mapped out and created by the UX designer, and then it's pushed to the developer who
Yeah,
makes it happen.
Okay.
Yeah,
pretty
Who
cool.
writes
as
the
you said,
code and everything.
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
who's
do the whole backend stuff, right?
yeah, doing the nerdy part of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also as you said, it's all about making things look nice but functional at the
Functional.
same time.
Yeah,
For sure.
Because
Because yeah,
if
you were
something
also
looks
saying
nice,
guiding.
yeah, if something looks nice but doesn't work for the people, then what's the reason? What's the point?
where's the reason? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why this area is actually this field of, in the companies is greasy a lot, because there are lots of apps where functionally it's horrible and don't keep you, to upload or to do the download of the app. But in the
Yes.
other hand, you have this professional where, make it looks nice and make it runs easier. So that's what you do with UX. It's
Yes,
pretty
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love the field where I am, and I love that it's really connected to psychology. And while you're designing, you're really tapping into the minds of the users and trying to see and understand their mental models, which is
Yeah.
basically a summary of their previous experiences. So if you until now worked with a certain product and the product reacts in a way, you would expect the next product to work a similar way as well, because that's what you're used to, and that's the interaction pattern that you're used to applying. So you will try to apply that same pattern to a new product, which is really nice. On the other hand, it can also get into some let's say addictive stuff. There's a term called dark patterns, which is used by companies to nudge users a certain way. And as designers, we should try to avoid those patterns, because that's kind of manipulation with the users, which is not really nice.
Yeah, sure, because you get, used to do this pattern, the thing that's working, and then you don't open your mind for creating another,
Yeah.
another stuff, different stuff. Because where is the UX design in this part? They want you to be creative. They want you to create a new product, the new way of functioning for the app. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, totally.
Getting off the mold. not just like sticking. I mean, obviously there's always going to be that expression, don't fix what's not broken.
Mhm.
But I mean, you can only reinvent something if you stay away from the mold and be creative and try to do something new and better. And for me with films, I see that a lot. I mean, for me, for example, the biggest I said example like 4 times, but the biggest example of last year for me was Batman. How different it was from just a superhero movie, because we've been having so many of the Marvel craps these past years that nobody's actually even saying this has been great. It's saturated. Every movie seems and looks the same. But then you have something like Batman, which is like, okay, let's try making something noir
Also,
and
Joker.
and
Joker
gothic.
actually was pretty different than the other.
Yeah,
The other ones was pretty good.
and just how it looks and how it feels, and that's the way to do it. Sometimes we've got to reinvent, even though it takes more time. Obviously, it's risky, but I mean, risk is such a big part of every type of job, because like only compensation only comes from risk. Obviously, like if anyone studies
100%.
risk management, it's the thing. Like even if you go to a casino, the more risky it is, the more money you get. And sometimes taking the risk and trying to reinvent something, that will not only make you cash out much more, but it will only also leave a legacy and something memorable, because you were the person that reinvented this. And
Took a shot and you took the risk. Man, for real. And everything in life, man. Every single factor of life, it's pretty much like this. Like for example, Mirek, he took a shot to go to Denmark, getting out from his comfort zone, and now he's a UX designer right there. Yeah, so it's totally a history of getting out from the comfort zone and take a risk.
Totally.
Congratulations for that, man, Mirek. What a story.
Thank you.
Right here. Pretty
Sometimes we kind of forget about the times where we stepped out of the comfort zone, because it becomes a norm. But when we reflect on our past journeys, we really get to appreciate it, and kind of remind ourselves of the context we were in, and what decisions we made, and how we risked things, and how it paid off eventually, which is nice. And we should not forget about those, because that can push us in the future to do more risks and then achieve greater things.
Sure. And during this pandemic time that passed, last years, we're kind of in the same page, everybody, and we were not appreciating things that we do. We were just appreciating things that people do on the internet, like just thinking that someone would be, more wealth or better than us. But on the other hand, we are not looking to our achievements. So this pandemic stuff just came out for us to reflect about it, to give more value to ourselves. And this is working a lot with me.
Yeah, at least something good.
Yeah, at least.
With this whole situation.
At least.
No, for sure. And as we were saying, sometimes we look at people online, but we don't look at the bad things from those people online.
Yeah.
Like the struggles that they went through. We think that they got just handed, but they didn't go through anything. But most of the times, these people went through shit, just like us. In most of our things. So yeah, reinventing the wheel. So Mirek, why did you actually went into UX design? Why UX design? Was it your first option? Like, were you going through something else maybe when you were in Czech Republic? How was all that?
When I studied at university in Czech Republic, I studied a totally different field. It's called International Development Studies. It's a lot focused on environmentalism, also politics, which is something that I was not really interested in, and maybe that was one of the factors why I decided to drop out, because there are a lot of things happening in the world, and you should understand the context of those things and how it influences one another. I have a huge appreciation for the people who work within that field, because it's usually in NGO setting. I really admire people who can work there, but I think that it would be just too hard for my mental state. I would not be able to cope with that. And I decided to drop out. And I think that the first seed for UX was planted when I was working in Starbucks during my kind of gap year, but I just stayed in my hometown in Czech Republic, and I tried to gain some money to afford living in Denmark, or at least starting my new chapter in Denmark. And even though, I mean, to be honest, Starbucks is not a good coffee. I don't even try to change my opinion about it. But they really focus on the customer experience there. Like they really try to bring a nice atmosphere to their environment, so their customers would have a nice time there. And I think that was one of the first hints for me to get into UX. When I got to Denmark, I studied a program called Multimedia Design and Communication. And in my third semester, I got to choose between UX, content creation, and front-end development. And I went for UX because during my studies, I really realized that this is the way I really want to make people enjoy their experiences. I really want to give them or provide them with experiences that matter to them, that are valuable, that bring something good to their lives. That's why I went for UX. Also, the teacher who was in charge of that specialization was the best teacher I've ever had. Maybe if she will listen to this podcast. Hi, Maria.
Shout out Maria.
Shout out to Maria.
Shout out to Maria.
Let's go.
She's the best. And yeah, I think that's how it happened. That's how I ended up in a UX field, and I'm in love with UX ever since.
No, that's amazing. That is really nice. I mean, the understanding from Starbucks about user interface and how important it is for like having a good interaction between product and customer, and that's how you actually got into UX design is really nice. And yeah, there's many people that also got, let's say, had these let's call it low skill jobs, but then from those low skill jobs they actually learn on what they actually wanted to do, but they had to go through these let's say jobs and careers to get to the place, okay, I actually know what I want to do. So I really admire that, and I really like it for sure.
Thanks.
100%.
Also, I think that in Denmark it's pretty common to have this gap year, and I think there's a huge difference between Czech Republic and Denmark, because in Czech Republic you are kind of pushed by your social bubble to study this, study that, get at least bachelor's degree, get at least master's degree as soon as possible. Like right when you finish something, you have to start something else. Otherwise, you are a failure. I think there's a huge stigma about this in Czech Republic. In Denmark, I don't see this. Like people just take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years off to really realize what they are passionate about, and then they start with that. And until then, they just live their lives. They try things. They succeed. Succeed. They fail, and yeah, they learn what they are really passionate about.
And that's how it should be. I mean, 20s is the when you should try something, because if you fail, there's only coming back. I mean, you've got normally people in their 20s, they don't got kids, they don't got big responsibilities. So it's when you can actually just try the craziest shit ever, and you fail, you get up again, and you try again. Now learned from your past failures. And I also think that it's important, because when you have that mentality of okay, I finished this, now I'm going straight to that, you don't really think really well if I really want to pursue that thing that this person told me to pursue, or that my parents told me to pursue, because you don't have time. You're like, and your bachelor's, then you're already applying for a master's degree, but you're not like thinking, okay, do I want to actually do a career out of this? And then once you start your master's, you start thinking, okay, it's too late, so I just got to end it.
Yeah.
So I really also appreciate the the gap years that especially Scandinavian countries, and I gotta say UK as well. The UK has a lot of that. But they normally just go to Thailand. It's always when you speak to an English person that did a gap year, you're like, so where did you go? And he's like, Bangkok.
Bangkok.
Bangkok. Always Thailand
Bali.
or Phuket or Bali.
Yeah.
But no, gap years are sometimes they're very important for people, even if it means working in low skilled jobs, so that you at least have the mental space and the time to think, okay, I may know what I actually want to do, and and it's not what I was going to do before this low skill job or before just chilling for a little bit.
For real. 21st century, guys. That's it.
100%.
Amazing. So, my dears, we reached the end of our podcast. It passed so fast, so far.
I do just want to mention one thing, because I was just
Feel free, buddy.
looking. This is actually kind of funny, and I want to know if you actually know this story, Mirek, because I'm a very big horror guy, and if there's something that I love, it's urban legends, and I want to know if you know about the haunting of Prague's Charles Bridge, about the 27 noblemen. Do you know about this?
This is
Supposedly,
the first time I'm hearing about it.
supposedly it's very famous, but basically the bridge, I think this is in front of the biggest church, Charles Bridge, or Charles Bridge is the bridge that connects to that big church to a central area, I presume. And it's basically just 27 noblemen that were executed in the Old Town Square after joining an uprising, and then 12 of those 27 were cut off their heads, and these heads were displayed on the Charles Bridge. And basically the story is that these 12 people that were put their heads in there still march across the bridge to go to the Old Town Square to avenge the people who cut off their heads.
What a kind of history is it?
I mean, it's my history. That's my shit.
All right.
We learn every day.
But it's funny, it was interesting.
Pretty much.
So yeah, guys, now you know, if you go visit Prague, check the old bridge and try to find if this urban legend is true. But
And watch out with your heads.
3:33 a.m. You gotta go there at this time, or else you won't hear the 12
out.
people marching to the Old Town Square. 100%. All right, so Mirek, we end this podcast with a big question, a big open-ended question, and that is, what is the thing that makes you the most proud about being from Czech Republic? So especially when you arrived in Denmark and you met your Danish friends, what was the thing that followed after you said I'm from Czech Republic, so they kind of understand why it's so important, why it's so big to be from this country?
I think that the thing I'm proud of is that we as Czechs are really, really tough cookies. Like, you're not gonna break us. Like, I think that throughout history we have been through a lot. All the wars and the communism era, Velvet Revolution. Like, we have been through a lot, and we are still here, and we are proud, and we won't give up that easily. Like, we really won't give up if we see a meaning in what we are doing.
Pretty good answer. I mean,
That's
yeah, totally. And how I feel you guys were when I went to the country. I feel like, and also you were very proud of the history behind everything that was happening, and I'm proud of not making things happen again, the worst things, let's say, and pretty good.
Yeah, true. I think that sometimes it's also hard for us to acknowledge that, but it's really deeply rooted in our country, I would say, in our Czech mentality.
Amazing. Pretty good, Mirek.
Nice.
So guys,
Right.
thank you so much for listening to this episode until the end. And Mirek, thanks so much for accepting the invitation. The episode was very nice. And we wish lots of luck in your UX career. You're doing the right things. You're in the right path. Congratulations. And Gui, thank you so much. One more episode, bro.
100%. And listeners, you already know, follow us on Instagram and Facebook to see all our content posted there, our reels, everything at podcast WWP. And be sure to also, if you want to see some video, to watch us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel,
Don't
brand
forget.
new, Worldwide Podcast, or just searching podcast WWP as well. All the links will be on our social medias. So we'll see you guys next week with a brand new episode. Bye bye, guys.
Bye bye, dears.